Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was 65, making $3.2 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $27 million and a worldwide total of $49 million. So finally, the film has now surpassed its initial budget of $45 million worldwide, and it's just $1 million away from surpassing the $50 million milestone, which it should be able to do pretty much by the time this video comes out. So already congratulations there. And that's all the really positive things I can say about this movie right now, as the film is still quite the disappointment overall. Yes, it was able to surpass its initial budget, but it still needs to double that, and frankly, I just don't think it's going to get there, sadly. Word of mouth has not been kind to this movie, and despite surpassing its initial budget worldwide, it is still yet to surpass it domestically, which is still not very good overall, and it's about to leave the top 5, so can't say we're going to see this movie any longer on this series anytime soon. So yeah, while it was able to surpass its initial budget, still failed to reach the box office success I think a lot of people were hoping for this movie, sadly. Number 4 was Creed 3, making $8.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $140 million and a worldwide total of $246 million. Creed 3 continues to do very well. I think $150 million domestically is in the bag for this movie without a shadow of a doubt, and it continues to grow up on the Rocky franchise charts. It is now the second highest grossing Rocky film of all time worldwide. I'm not sure if it will be able to surpass the $300 million worldwide total of Rocky 4, but given where it's at, and this is still a very solid total, and the fact that it got to number 2 is still quite impressive. All around, a very solid performance for this film. However, I am very curious to see where the film will head in the coming weeks. If you weren't aware, there was some controversy that came out about one of the co-stars, Jonathan Majors. You can look into that if you want the gritty details, but yeah, he did something not very good, to put it lightly. So we'll see how that affects the film's performance, but even then, I still think that this movie has made all the money it needed to. It's already a huge success, so even if it takes a huge hit in the coming weeks, I don't really think it will amount to anything. I mean, it will become less successful than it already is. Okay, but yeah, otherwise another solid performance for Creed 3. Number 3 was Scream 6, making $8.3 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $89 million and a worldwide total of $139 million. Scream 6 also continues to do very well. On the domestic side of things, it is just $6 million away from surpassing Megan to becoming the highest grossing horror film of the year so far. Not bad at all. And it is roughly $14 million from surpassing the first Scream to becoming the highest grossing film in the franchise, which I think it's safe to say that this movie will be able to do. Not too sure about worldwide. That kind of seems like a bit of a reach, but hey, at the very least it was able to surpass the previous installment of this franchise, Scream 5 from last year, and the fourth one, which is still very good. So yeah, overall continues to doing very well. It has already doubled its budget and continues to be very solid counter programming as the only real horror film in theaters right now. Think that's one of the main factors that's helping it out, along with the fact that people just really like it. The buzz has been really strong so far. And yeah, Scream continues to do very well for itself as a horror franchise, even with a new franchise without its leading lady, Neve Campbell. It still has a huge following otherwise. Yeah, not a bad performance at all. Number 2 was Shazam! Fury of the Gods, making $9.6 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $45 million and a worldwide total of $102 million. As if last weekend was bad enough, the film had a huge drop-off, falling 69% from the previous weekend. Oh my goodness, this continues to be a huge disaster. There's no way to spin this around. Turn this around, folks. This is just a horrible performance overall. I guess at the very, very least, you could say at some point in its theatrical run, it'll be able to surpass its $125 million budget worldwide, maybe, but even that's gonna take a really long while. Say what you will about 65, at least it wasn't as expensive as this was, and oh my goodness. It's a really fascinating sight to see how a lot of other movies, like Creed 3 and Scream 6 continue to do really well. Cocaine Bear again was a surprise hit. All these other movies are continuing to do well, but comic book movies are the ones that are starting to hurt at the box office. Very interesting thing. We'll see if this trend continues into the rest of the year. I don't think so. I still think we're going to get some pretty big ones, but yeah, very interesting thing to see right now. But still doesn't change the fact that Shazam! Fury of the Gods, this is just a overall terrible performance for this movie. It's pretty much dead on arrival, unfortunately. It may continue to hold well, maybe linger in the top 5 from here on forth, but it's not going to leave a lasting impact. This is just a pretty awful performance. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was John Wick Chapter 4, opening with $73 million this weekend domestically and $137 million worldwide. This is the second biggest opening weekend of the year, topping Megan, Scream 6, and Creed 3, but sitting behind Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And of course, it is the biggest opening weekend of the John Wick franchise, topping the previous entry in the franchise, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. This movie had a huge opening weekend. I knew it was not only going to top the last film, but I also had a feeling that it would crack 70 million. The buzz and the hype just seemed so big. This franchise has just become this huge franchise based off of really think about it though, how this franchise started off as like this one little action movie that got some sort of attention back in 2014. It's now become this huge big franchise with these record-breaking openings and this huge fan base and love and passion for it. It's really interesting and fascinating to see. This is an absolutely great opening. The film costed $100 million. It's already made that back, and it's going to make even more than that. I do think word of mouth is going to be strong with this one, as it received an A on CinemaScore, the highest score for any John Wick film, which is really awesome. And the critical acclaim, and from what I've heard from people who've seen it, everyone really likes this movie. I think it's going to have very strong holds and legs overall. And yeah, John Wick pretty much kicked the box office right on track with another successful opening weekend in March. This is a fantastic opening. I don't see how anyone could be upset over this opening weekend overall. The movie is already a huge hit, and it's going to continue to be a bigger hit than it already is. Just bravo. And those were the top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we only really have one new major wide release, and that film is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Folks, we may have one of our first big wild cards of the year, as initially I was going to come here and say, okay, this is a flop waiting to happen, who is really interested in this movie, yada yada yada, but then something interesting happened. You see, the film screened early at South by Southwest, and then the reviews came out, and they were great. Critics are really liking this film. As a matter of fact, the last time I checked, it was like at a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very high for a Dungeons & Dragons movie. And with that, it has sparked a huge interest in this movie. I'm hearing more and more people talk about this movie and getting interested in seeing it. Not by a wide margin, mind you, but certainly bigger than before the South by Southwest screenings. So much so that many people are saying this is probably going to exceed a lot of people's expectations, which is great. However, there is still that gut feeling I have on how big is this movie really going to be. It is still a Dungeons & Dragons film, and I'm not sure how much of the general public really cares about the game, except for like maybe die hardcore fans pretty much. And I'm not sure if the buzz has gotten so big to where it's now for sure going to be a huge hit, as again, I still think this movie's probably going to get a little bit overshadowed by John Wick Chapter 4, but I don't think this movie's going to flop anymore, that's for sure. I think it's probably going to do way better than a lot of people say. I'm just curious to see how big it can get, really. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that landed in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied? Unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.